Hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten, and I'm the programming director at Milwaukee Film. And we're very excited that tonight we get to share the Q&A for the documentary Queen of Hearts, Audrey Flack. And we'll be joined tonight by the directors Deborah Schaefer and Rachel Reichman. So let's bring them up on the screen so that we can welcome. Hi, Rachel and Deborah. How are you?
Great. From New York. Greetings from New York.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for joining us. And just a reminder to the audience, I'm going to start out with a few questions, but if anybody has any questions they want to submit, you can just put them in on the comments of whatever social media platform you're watching on. So Facebook, Twitter, doesn't matter. And they'll come up on our side, and then I can ask our very special guests, and you'll get to hear what they think. But to start out with, I will ask an easy question, which is, how did you decide to make this film?
Well, like many things, I don't know that it was so much a decision, because I find if you think about things for too long, that can be kind of paralyzing. So I met Audrey through somebody I had made a film with previously. She said, I've met this amazing woman and we have to make a film about her. And we went out for a coffee on the Upper West Side just about exactly 5 years ago, actually. And really, the short answer is that I fell in love with Audrey over coffee. I mean, she told us in a nutshell, in about an hour and a half, her life story. And I thought, I knew there was something there. She was such a great storyteller, and just all the different areas that she talked about. And she's, as you see in the film, she's so captivating that, before I knew what I was doing, before I knew much about her work, that's one of the things I think people find surprising. I did not know, I knew about it a little bit, but I was not intimately familiar with her work at all. And it wasn't actually important to me in the beginning. It was Audrey I was interested in. It was Audrey as an older woman artist who's still working. That was my, she to me, she was like, she's working. She's 89 now. She was 85 when I met her. She's the real deal. I guess she was 84 when I met her. She was 85 when we did most of the filming.
And Rachel, how did you get involved with the film?
Well, Deb and I had a chance to work together. Now it might be 10 years ago on a film about women in Rwanda, right?
Yeah.
And such an interesting film for PBS. It was fantastic. But Deb and I, of course, hadn't worked together. And when we met, we clicked, and we ended up developing a really good working relationship on that project. And, I love Deb's films, and I'd seen things she'd done in the meantime and vice versa. And I just, we became friends. And she reached out to me to pitch in on the project. And, I knew they didn't have a full concept of what kind of project it was going to be, where they were going to show it. I knew it was a little risky to get involved, but I wanted to pitch in. And when
there wasn't any money to pay her much.
Okay, well, we won't get into that part of it. I'm trying to be polite, but anyway, not sound, you got to pay the bills, right? So, but I had other things that were enticing me. And when I pitched in again to help with the trailer, which I'm pretty sure I was paid for, I realized I had been crazy about Audrey's work when I was a kid, when I was 15, 16. And of course, you can understand why a teenager might absolutely love this work when you dig into it. But I even fancied for a good 6 to 8 weeks that I was going to be a photorealist painter for the rest of my life because I loved her work so much. And then I moved on and forgot all about it. And here Deb approached me with this interesting, invitation to just get started helping them out, raise money. And I stuck around a lot longer.
I just have to pitch in. Because Rachel started as an editor and became the co-director, partly because, we had a huge work structuring this film, and we can talk about that if you want. But also Rachel brought a real, because she had grown up more in an art history world, and she can talk about her background, but Rachel was really the one who insisted we had to broaden the film in a way that it wasn't just Audrey's story, but it was the story of other artists. What else was going on in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the art world culturally. And I just have to give her credit for bringing, especially bringing the art history knowledge to the film that I think just makes it so much richer because it became so multi-layered, and that's a lot of that is Rachel's contribution. And well, you can't brag about yourself, so I can brag about
Well, it's what it just the feeling was so deep inside me that it was absolutely essential that we place her in history, and that's where film is a collaborative art. People that are involved on the most intimate creative parts of it bring different contributions, and that was mine. I didn't have as merely, though Audrey is fascinating and completely seductive. She's so eloquent and so charming. I just love her both in person and on the screen. And she's intense. She's formidable. We'll talk about that later. But that's not that's one film. But to really give it context is what gave it gravity.
Yeah, I think the context was very helpful for the movie. And similar to you, Deborah, I was unfamiliar with her work before I watched it too. And then I found out they actually have one of her pieces here at the Milwaukee Art Museum. So I'll have to go see that sometime.
Is it one of the big photorealist paintings?
I'm not sure which one it is, but I hope it's a big photorealist one because those were so amazing to see in the film. And I'm sure they're even more amazing in person.
Surprise. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope it's of interest to your audience, but Rachel went to MoMA when it reopened very early, when it reopened after it had shut down for the pandemic, and came off the escalator at the 5th floor, and they have rehung Audrey's painting called Leonardo's Lady that she painted in 1974. They acquired it in 75. I don't think they've hung it since then. And they hadn't told Audrey they were going to hang it.
Oh, wow.
And Rachel gets off the escalator, and there's the painting. And it looks like it was painted yesterday. I've been to see it since Audrey went to see it, of course.
It's breathtaking. That's the thing. Also, when Deb initially, and if you need to interrupt us because you have a particular question, but otherwise, I just will say, early on in the process, when I did just begin working with Deb, there was a show at the Parish Art Museum on Long Island, was having a show of photorealist work. And they had Wheel of Fortune, which is the painting we do feature. And I jumped on a train and went out to Long Island. In person, the work is so breathtaking. You cannot get the sense of it in a reproduction.
Even in our film, we do not do the art justice. I will be the first to admit that. And I actually, now I've seen a lot of, I was seeing art films before, and I always use the example of that wonderful film about Carmen Herrera, the short film called The 100-Year Story, I think it is. And she had her first show at the Whitney when she was 100. And I was not wowed by the paintings in the movie at all. And then I went to the Whitney and saw the work, and I was like, oh. It's so, I urge everybody to please just go to the museums and see the movie. You can't do it. Film flattens things. There's just no way you can really, and the scale and the color and the glow and all of it. You've got to see it in person.
Well, we're lucky enough that we're able to do that without traveling too far. So one thing I wanted to hear more about is, since you were director and co-director of the movie, what was it like collaborating and both sharing some of the responsibilities in the filmmaking process?
Well, I came into film. Film is anyway a very collaborative business, unlike many of the other arts. It's not like, I have many, many friends who are painters, and they go in their studio and they're alone for days on end. I personally couldn't, that doesn't appeal to me. And all filmmaking is a collaboration. And I started making films as a member of a collective. When I first learned, I was in a filmmaking organization where we didn't give anybody credit at the end of the film. We just were all the filmmakers, no matter what we did. Some people were just learning, some people had done sound. We used to share edit. We used to take turns editing. Like, somebody would edit for 8 hours, and then somebody else would sit down and re-edit what that person had edited. It was nuts. I gotta tell you, it was completely nuts. But it was a great way to learn. So I'm by nature very collaborative anyway. And, we didn't, I had done most of the shooting before Rachel came on. I had shot most of it before we started editing, which is what you tend to do in documentaries. Although we did do some more interviews, and Rachel and I collaborated. Where are we missing things? What do we need to do for the, working up the questions together? But it wasn't a difficult. Our collaboration was mostly over the editing, and we wrestled with this film. It was hard. It was a hard film to edit, but it wasn't hard between us. I mean, I'm sure we were both frustrated at times, but we didn't have any major disagreements or falling outs or want to take it one way or the other way. And we were also both very open to input from other people. I have to say it was very important. And I do this every time I make a film. We thought, we kind of thought we had it. And we showed it to some other people who'd worked with our staff. There were like 5 of us. And we had a 2-hour cut, and it ended, and we were all crying. We were all like, oh, it's so wonderful. And we were so moved. And then we showed it to some other people, and they were like, what the heck? They didn't like it at all. So we were like, oh, no. Anyway, the input from other people, you get so inside your own little bubble. Even if there are 2 of you, bouncing back and forth, or 3 of you or 4 of you, you have to keep bringing in fresh eyes. I'm a big, big, big believer in that.
Exactly. That's absolutely true. And really, there are certain things we took the lead on. Deb took the lead completely in terms of the personal story. She had so many ideas, as she said, before I ever came on, in terms of what to shoot. Her first approach in going out to the Pollock house. And when I first knew about the scene that took place in the Pollock house, my thinking was, it doesn't belong in the film. And of course, it's absolutely essential to the film, absolutely. And so I needed to really put all my prejudices aside, which were preconceived, and completely surrenders to sort of Deb's concept. And then, I was able to bring that to life in the edit room. But I had to let go of my own preconceived ideas about what a story about Audrey would look like. Do you want to jump in, Deb?
Well, I just think I used to teach editing when I taught film. I used to teach film editing, and I used to say to the students all the time, whatever your script was, whatever your treatment was when you went out to shoot, and the film you thought you were making, throw it out when you get in the cutting room. You just have to throw it away, because if you try to stick to preconceived, you have to discover the film in the material. Now, that's a very time-consuming way to work, and it can be frustrating. I'm sure Rachel will tell you. There we were with mountain stacks and stacks and stacks of transcripts, trying to, okay, what's this film about? After I'd been shooting for a year and a half or whatever, where's the movie in here? It's a particular kind of way of working, and it's not for everybody. But I believe it gives a better result. But it takes time. Also, you have to have the time. You can't, you have to have we probably spent, over a period of 2 years, we probably spent a year editing.
Absolutely. There's no question. And also, what I have a kind of maybe passion for, that's not quite the right word, but obsession with, is the archival material. Because Deb was very tuned into the verite, I felt, because you shot lots of fantastic verite, which was so terrific that we had. And then I was like, okay, where are the personal photographs? I was so insistent that I had to see Audrey as a kid, like immediately, before I could understand any of the stories about her childhood. I needed some intimacy with her at that time in her life, and her family, and all the things she talked about. And sure enough, they were available. But,
Rachel found that old black and white interview with Audrey from the 70s, which we didn't know existed.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah. And I love archive film too. I've done many historical documentaries, and I love, 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 love film archives.
What was the process like getting that archival footage and pictures and like that interview that you didn't even know exist? How did you find that?
Really, now archival research is done to a very large degree on the internet in a way wasn't. And in some cases, so some of that stuff we found, that was from Video Data Bank in Chicago, I believe is where they're located. And you could reach out to them. Of course, arts institutions are a little slower to deal with than a commercial archive, of course, because they don't have the same investment in getting back to you right away. And so, for instance, when it came to things like the Smithsonian or the Whitney Museum archives and things like that, I had to just go there.
Yeah.
I had to go there and do my best to discreetly copy things. Not that it was done without them knowing it, because that's just unethical.
Well, that's the other thing that's so great about archives today. The cameras, our little phones are so good. I mean, in the old days when I started doing this kind of work, you had to pay for expensive reproductions of photographs and all kinds, and nowadays you take your phone and you can take a perfectly good, high resolution picture. But also, yeah, remember Ashley and I went out to New Jersey to this archive, this guy who had like photos of old New York, and we found some of the old photos of Audrey's neighborhood there. I mean, that's to me the fun of archive footage is the actual, really digging around and finding things that people don't know exist. Or, another brilliant stroke, and I think this was also Rachel, was is it Ethel Merman, the Esther Williams, the swimming footage. When Audrey talked about having done that diorama when she was a child of, and then. It was a big commercial movie, so.
Yeah. Well, what we did was, at first, I started off by doing something that got pared way down, which were, in principle, I don't love recreations. If you're a genius and you do them well, like there's this beautiful film about Joe Papp. So Joe Papp in 5 acts. They got some great artists to go and shoot recreations around New York with them in black and white 16. They're spectacular and nuanced, subtle. Most people don't do that. But I felt like when we were talking about Audrey's childhood and the artwork she was making from the time she was a little kid, that was a really delicate thing because she's an artist. You don't go get somebody to fake that. And yet, I wanted a little texture around that. So very simple. We shot a little bit of that stuff and pared it down. We ended up using just a little bit of it. And one of them was the Esther Williams footage, which I just, made copies of Esther Williams and got a friend of mine to cut it out. And it's buried in that film somewhere. And it's the diorama with the mirror, right? Anyway.
It's an interesting history about recreations. Actually, I was just thinking about it in documentaries because the first documentaries were all recreations because people couldn't really take a camera out and shoot. Nanook was all entirely recreated and directed from the. So it's sort of, and then the pendulum swung completely the other way. Fly on the Wall, cinema verite. And I remember very clearly the film that I think brought recreations back to documentaries in the modern era really is Thin Blue Line, is Errol Morris. And all of a sudden, that was like an eye-opening, earth-changing film. But I personally feel that the pendulum is going a little far the other direction now. I mean, there's so many films that are almost hybrids. There's so many documentaries that really are almost part documentary and part fiction. And I wish we had a third category because it's just not, I have to vote at the end of the year for all these awards things. And we're comparing cinema verite films to historical archive films to half recreate. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I know that you were mentioning that Audrey was a strong personality, and I would love to hear how you were able to get to know her and get comfortable with her and sort of get her comfortable with being a film subject.
I think she has said in an interview, I guess she liked me right away too, because I liked her right away. And you have to, I'd say 95% of documentary filmmaking is trust between the directors and the subjects. I mean, you have to trust each other because it's all just fundamentally in the end rests on openness and integrity. So she trusted us, but she was also, she has almost suspicious nature. And I think what she didn't realize when she said yes to the film was that she wasn't going to get to make the film with us. And I'm not sure she quite understood that. And so that's where we had some back. She wanted to see it. She wanted to see it while it was in progress. And yeah, it's old school training, whatever. No, absolutely not. The subject can never see the film before it's done. It's just out of the question. It would impugn my integrity. It would, towards the end, she was like, when can I see it? When she finally developed this line. It was very funny because they were saying you could see it before it's done, but not yet. She finally said, if you won't show it to me, something's wrong with it. What's wrong with it? She was trying to find a way into but we did show it to her about a week before we were done, essentially. I mean, if she had any major problem with something, we would have had to address that. But we had to finish it to our satisfaction before we showed it to her. And with one exception, there's something we left out of the film she wanted in it, and she was bugging us constantly to put it in. She has a band. Audrey has a band called the History of Art Band. She plays the banjo. And you see her playing the banjo in the film. Yeah. She has this band, and it's very kooky and funny, and we just couldn't fit it in. There's a lot of things we left out of the film. There are wonderful stories we left out. We have so many, we really have to do the DVD extras. So, and the band will be there. But anyway, I don't know where I was going with all of that. Audrey, she loves the film now. And we're still like really close. I don't think I've had this I'm close to a lot of the people I've made films about, but I talk to them once a year. I talk to Audrey once a week.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad that she ended up liking the movie because we all like the movie a lot too. Yeah. And we hope that everybody is able to catch it on our Sofa Cinema virtual cinema platform. If you haven't caught it already, it'll be up for a while now, but you should watch it sooner rather than later so you can understand all the great stuff we've been talking about. But I just wanted to thank you both so much for talking with us tonight. And we're really excited that we were able to share your movie with Milwaukee. And we hope that you have some new projects for us down the line. We'd love to bring them back.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. It was fun. I hope we didn't.
You were wonderful.
Natter on too much.
Yep, it was great. So I hope you have a great night, and everybody have a good night.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.